Right. So this is I don't think this is lecture. This is lecture 12. This should be lecture 13 um, because we are on the seventh week. There is no one. There was one holiday. That's why no. That seems like it's lecture 12. We didn't have a class on um, on the last week, which was Veteran Day, and we'll also not have class on midterms. The day which you have midterms. I'll tell you what exactly the details. Okay. So few announcement. Every homework should be graded except 5. They have already graded most of the questions on homework 5. But you don't have to wait for it. Check the solutions. If your solution doesn't match with the solution I posted, don't think that your is correct. Your is incorrect. For instance, I found out I made one calculation error for settling velocity, and somebody pointed out, and TA also corrected me. Again, we grade for the right approach. Write all your step. If you don't write the steps and your solution is messy, more likely TA is going to take the point off if you have wrong answers. And also, it's very important to write all the steps for midterms. Because midterms will look for every little details to give you point back. So if you, in case your approach is completely wrong, still we'll see where your approach is correct. So that's why you have to write everything that you can think of. Don't leave anything blank. Don't assume anything. In the sense, don't think anything is small amount to write. Whatever your thoughts, write it out. If you don't know the right answer, still write something that you are thinking. Midterms is this week. That will be on lecture 1 to 10. This has 3 long questions and 10 short questions. Total hour is 3.5 hour. Total that including 0.5 hour given to half an hour for you to upload it. So normal duration is 3 hours. Okay, and the difficulty level, everything is similar to how you have seen in the previous exams. Similar to homework questions, maybe a little bit here, change here and there, but it's what is unknown might be different, but everything will be very similar. Uh, any questions? Somebody was saying, I didn't hear. Okay, well, I take it as a background noise. Um, all right, so the question will be released on 1 p.m. on Wednesday. Not 1 p.m. Actually, it should be noon. Should be noon because I intend to have no class that day. The reason is what we have for this week is second half of wastewater treatments. We already learned most of the questions or how to solve the wastewater treatment questions. I'll just pre-record that class and upload it because I realize even I have a class that day. Many of you will be thinking of exams. So there is no point of having that class while your attention is for exams. So what I'll do is I'll pre-record the class, not re-recorded, pre-recorded the class, and then I'll upload it. Again, that will not have any concept. This will mostly more example of wastewater treatment plants, more long questions so that you'll be prepared for the homework number 6. So I'll release the homework 6 on Thursday. That's all on wastewater treatments. Okay, so that will be due next the following week. And so this Wednesday class will be helpful for you to have some example questions on that. Again, we'll also a little bit cover on membrane design. Let me see if there is any questions. So let me get to that. All right, so there is a question. Is there any way to release it earlier? A lot of us has class at 2 to 6 following 153, so we'd not be able to do the midterms before 6. We need full 3.5 hours. Just to reiterate, this is a 24-hour window. Okay, so what that means is you can start the question at 6 o'clock and continue until 9. But if you think this something will be useful, I don't have any problems releasing earlier. The downside is it's also 24 hours back. So whenever I release, this will be due 24 hours within that time. So that means um, I'm fine with releasing early. But then let's say I release in the morning at 10 o'clock on Wednesday. It will be due by 10 o'clock on Thursday. Okay, so that means that 24 hours will be um, okay. All right. So I think just for change, I'll release that um, at um, at noon. That's the time we had class. So that's one of the way. But if I release that, maybe maximum 1 hour earlier, not before. But I think that's something we did pre-designed before. So I have to think about it because I know for sure this is a 24-hour window, so it should not be a problem for most of you. But
Just
again, one yes,
I just want to confirm that if I open it up, like if you release it like at 11 or whatever time you release it,
yeah,
say I open it up at like 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, will I still get the full 3 hours?
yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So whenever you open, your time start from that time. Okay. So let's say you open at noon, you got to submit before 3:30 p.m. Okay, so you can't, even though that's 24 hours. That's why I said it like 24 hours. I know that some of our international students, like somebody said, it's better to have in the same time as class. Okay, so we'll release that during the class at noon, and if you have class after that 2 o'clock, don't open it. Okay, open after your class. Um, Okay, so and one thing I wanted to say that now for quiz also I remember some students, accident can happen. For example, some students they didn't have internet connections. So if you think that your network is weak, you can't upload it, don't open it because once you're once you open it, the time starts and I cannot change it because it will show in the um, on the on the grade scope that you have already opened this many hours. So even you could not upload that, we could not do much. But if you don't have internet connection, don't open it. Send me email that you have these difficulties. Now we'll wait for when this thing resolve. That way, Gradescope allow me to, in very rare case, I'll be able to, um, as long as you didn't open, I'll able to extend it for you only for the submission window, as long as you have not opened it. Okay, and only if you don't have something unavoidable circumstances. But once you open it, I can't do anything because that I assume that this is already you have seen the questions. There is nothing I can do to just to be fair with the rest of the class. Okay, so that's um, all for the midterms. Any questions on midterms process and anything else? Again, this will be lecture 1 to 10. I'll discuss the materials, what will be on the exams. Um, yes, any person who requested extra time through CAE, they are getting it by default. I'm not changing it. Okay, so we'll discuss today quiz 2 solutions, and let me open the CCLA so that I know what's the average grade and all that. I didn't check that. And again, I didn't go through the quiz questions individually, so I can only tell what's the solution here. But if you have very specific question about your particular quiz, send me an email. I can just double check that. So I'm going to write it here. Okay. So the quiz, I'll discuss quiz, but also the average and everything else that is here. So the quiz average was 8.37. On 207 students appear the students um, attended the quiz, 2 missing, and this is also consistent with the last quiz too. So 2 students didn't take the quiz. I didn't check whether they're the same students, but if you are one of them who didn't take the quiz, just know that no, you got to appear all the exams and homework, because that's, if you attend everything, by default you'll get C. Even let's say you didn't did very poorly, in that case I usually ask you to repeat everything so that you know the questions and answers. um, but if you don't appear, this is, you forfeit the full points. It's very difficult to get the grade back. So appear all the exams no matter what, and submit all the homeworks. And I'm just going to show the solutions, but here I want to say how many percentage get it right. So 98% got this one right. So question one, everybody has, almost everybody got it right. This is 90%. And then question three have a lot of people difficulties. So 66% got it right. 93% got it right, this one. And 87% got it this right. 96% got this one right. 98% got this one right. 83% got this one right. This is the hardest one. Most of you got it wrong. So this is 36% got it right. 91% got it right. Okay. This is percentage got it right.
Professor,
Yeah.
when are we going to be able to see the grades for this quiz? Because I can't see it on CCLE.
Oh, okay. So I have to check why it doesn't show. By default, it should. So maybe something. So I have to see if there is any setting that I have to activate. I'll check that one.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So let's go through the solutions. The first question was enzymes to cellular functions. What are they made of? Carbohydrates are food. Nucleic acids like DNA, RNA, they are not necessarily the enzymes. So the only thing option left is correct answer is C. Um, so let's see. The second question: what is the threshold dose for a carcinogen chemicals? So threshold means, if you remember the dose response curve or mortality curve, most of the time you see, like, it could be like this. Right? So usually that's true for non-carcinogen. For carcinogen, the threshold, which is here, is always assumed to be 0. That means there is always risk for even very small quantity of pollutant. So they usually extend that to so this is 0 threshold for carcinogen. So what that means is there is no amount which is safe. There is always a risk for that, just to be in the safe side. Turbulent stream bed increases aerations. What would happen to the maximum oxygen deficit at the critical distance if aeration increases in the stream bed due to engineering modifications? So I just say that if you have turbulence in the water, there will be more aerations because there is more mixing um, with oxygen. So what I'm asking is, if you remember this is the SAG curve. This is the point of release of contaminants. This is the critical distance. This is so I'm asking, what will happen to the maximum oxygen deficit at the critical distance? So the deficit is whatever this is DO sat. This is the DO criticals. So the deficit would be, maximum deficit would be DO sat minus DO criticals. Okay, so I asked the question, what would happen to the maximum oxygen deficit at the critical distance if aeration increases in the stream bed? So what does it mean? The reason this decreases is because BOD is being consumed, and there is a balance between aerations versus degradations. So aerations, oxygen will come in, and degradations will remove the oxygens. So if you are more aerations, that means your will be the deficit will if there is more oxygen coming in, that means even you are degrading a lot of BOD, the deficit will be less because there will be more oxygen coming into the system compared to before. So the deficit will decrease because of more oxygen coming in. Okay. Um, let's see, what's the next question? Henry law constant of oxygen in summer is different from that in winter. Is this statement true or false? So it's a little bit tricky question, I thought, but most of you got it right. The question was if Henry law constant will change in different temperatures. That's internally I'm asking that. A lot of time people think about that a constant means constant, it's always constant, but that's not true. It's constant with at certain temperature and pressure or normal conditions. There is a noise with the construction today. Okay, so Henry law constant is a function of temperatures and pressure. Okay, so at any time you define Henry law constant, you specify the temperature that it is. So that means this statement is false. Which of the following factor doesn't affect BOD degradation constant? So I'm asking for, if you remember, BOD LT is L0 initial BOD to the minus KDT. So I'm asking which doesn't affect degradation constant, which is K. Okay, so you remember K is function of obviously any reaction function of temperature, so this cannot be true. It is also who is degrading is the microbial community, so they would able to also degrade different types of organic. So some microorganism cannot degrade everything, so that's why it is um, it is also not correct answer. Um, but as you know, the degradation constant is not dependent on dl by dt, is kl. So this doesn't depends on the concentrations. Okay, the constant doesn't depend on concentration. So that initial BOD concentration is not a factor.
Professor,
Yeah.
on 4, you said it's false, but you also said that the Henry law constant is dependent on temperature.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I meant to say that one. This is a false that is different, but Vanilla constant is different from the, okay, so that statement is true. Okay, so it's not same. I'm sorry, that's a um, I have to check if I didn't check the solution what was graded, but I hope I write the right things there. Thank you. So this statement is true. Okay. Next question, which statement is true? BOD ultimate, so I'm asking all the different question. BOD ultimate, BOD theoreticals, and BOD5. So you got to know the difference. So the BOD5 is a amount of BOD degraded in 5 days. Okay, it is nothing to do with the initial amount of BOD. It's just what happened, how much degraded in 5 days. BOD ultimate, so that's basically BOD5 is L0 minus L5. Okay, so LT T equal to 5, and BOD ultimate is L0. Okay, and BOD theoretical is the total amount of organic carbons that could be degraded or can consume oxygen. It doesn't have to be microorganism, because for instance plastic, if you put some plastic, the BOD ultimate would be probably 0 because nobody can degrade plastic, at least in the time scale that you are recording. But theoretically, it should consume oxygen, because if you burn in in by if you burn in a burn the plastic, it will also consume oxygen. So BOD theoretical is always greater than or equal to BOD ultimate, and BOD ultimate would be greater than equal to BOD 5. So that's the right kind of answers. So the correct answer would be C. Which types of aquifer has greater risk of pollution for surface activities, assuming groundwater wells are secure? So if you think of what I'm asking here is that if you this is surface and or this is groundwater, and then you have also confined aquifer. Okay, so this is confined because two layer, this is unconfined. The same question as one of the quiz or the exams. If you if you have a if you have a spill on the surface, it's coming in. That spill will pollute the groundwater here on the unconfined versions. The confined aquifer will be protected because there is no water exchange between the surface, or and because that clay layer will protect that. So that means there will be less risk of pollutions. So the unconfined has always less risk from the surface versus unconfined because it's not exposed to. So I ask which one has a greater risk, so that will be confined. Oh, I'm sorry, this is unconfined. Garden soil can become compacted due to the activities on surface. How would the retardation factor change due to compactions? So if you think of retardation factor is 1 plus ball density times KOC FOC divided by porosity. So this is porosity, this is ball density. So think of what compaction would do. So if you think of compactions, compactions means you have two particles, you put pressure on them, so that makes them come closer, so you packed more particles in a smaller space. So that means your density would increase, or ball density would increase. So if your compaction increases, you increase the ball density, you also decrease the porosity. Okay, because that the space will decrease. That means your contaminant has to pass through the system, which is very so compact that it will interact with the soil more frequently. So that means your retardation factor would increase based on these explanations. Number 9, which I felt like a lot of people are confused, or the question was, let's discuss that, then we see. Groundwater discharge rate Q into a pumping well in a confined aquifer is not affected by the following factors. So let me draw this one again. So again, this is confined aquifer. This is confined aquifer, so this is surface. If I dig a well here, okay, let me just, okay. So my question was, which doesn't affect the, so think of the flow rate, Q equal to K dH over dl area. This is the Darcy's law. Okay, that's the amount of flow that will get into the well. So let's think of each one. The Q depends on K, depends on area, and depends on hydraulic gradients. So let's see which one are there. Hydraulic conductivity aquifer, which is K. So obviously Q depends on K, increases with K. So this cannot be answered. Well, diameters. So think of the flow. Now, what's the area? Area is the 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 surface from where the water is pouring into. So if you think of well, the area would be this. These are the water is coming through this one. So this is well. If I look at the surface, so the area of this one is 2 pi r, times height of the well. If you think of that way, so the area is basically depends on the diameters, okay, or pi d. Okay. Um, so that's why this cannot be answers. The next one is hydraulic gradients. That's dH over dl. You know from that equation that could not be. So the final answer would be this one, but let's explain what does that mean even. Width of aquifer. So think of how much if you pour a pipe, if you insert a pipe in a let's say in a bucket of water and the pipe has holes, I'm asking how much water will get into the stone. Does it depends on how wide the or the height of the if I know that some students confuse whether width is this or the depth or the width. It doesn't really matter because it's really about the confined aquifer. So wherever you are the well location, it will always going to be pressurized into that. So the width, it doesn't matter how big the bucket is. Your water flow will be always depends on that pipe as well as the hydraulic gradients, um, which is not controlled by the width. It's controlled by the because it's a confined aquifer. It depends on the that upstream locations. So the correct answer is D. The last one, adsorption coefficient or linear adsorption would not depend on the following factors. So if you think of KD, already I wrote this one. This is FOC times KOC. Okay. So fraction of organic carbon. So you cannot expect that one because written here. Contaminant adsorption affinity to organic carbon, that's KOC. So that means this is not the only thing that's is the initial concentrations. If you think of linear adsorptions, KD is concentration of contaminant in soil divided by concentration in water. So it doesn't matter if your sea water is initially increases, the sea soil also proportionally increases to make sure the KD is constant. So the KD is in for at least for linear adsorption, it doesn't depend on the concentration of contaminants. So that's the solutions. After that, we'll just go through each lecture. So any question here?
Ask a question about number 9.
Okay.
I guess I was conflating this problem with plume and contaminant flow. So I guess I thought the width of the aquifer is in that equation. Y is equal to something over 2, the flow over 2 VB. So I thought that width did factor into this. So how can we in the future differentiate between this type of a question versus a contaminant plume flow type of problem?
Okay, so that's a good point. So let's think of what is that this one is the one that you may be confused with. This is the plume width, right? So plume. So if you pump water at certain flow rate, that width will change. Okay, that's what it's saying. It will increase. Obviously, it will increase. So now question is, if this Q is not natural flow, this is what you are pumping out. Okay, you are applying pressure so that the plume will fall into that one. But if you, let's say you have a well and you just use the natural flow, you don't really apply any pressure, there'll be natural, let's say there is a hole here. You just imagine somehow that whatever water drain here, this will fall into here. You are pumping out exactly same rate by naturally how much it can fill without applying any pressure. You're not creating a head on your own. So this is the difference is this plume width is basically contaminant plume width, like wherever the contaminants can be captured. What I'm asking here is the how much water will normally drain into this one if you, it's nothing with the pollutant, it's just how much water will just drop into a hole if you dig that hole over there. So I think, let me think, because I can see that where you might start thinking that this is related to plume width. I'm just trying to think of your way of, because I obviously everything is um, discharge rate and pumping well. So even think of this way, if I ask you, does the width of a plume depends on the width of aquifer? That's like width means no, not obviously depth. Um, then then is it true? So if you think of that previous, if I ask that question, I'm just trying to think what I'll ask if I have to ask in this way. Y equal to, let me see, Q equal to. So if I remember, let me see that equations, Plum equation, that way we know exactly. Let's see, that was on lecture 10, not lecture 10, lecture 9, lecture 9 or 8. This is the groundwater quality. Okay, so let me see what's the equations. So the Q in confined aquifer, Q equal to 2 pi K B, then H1 minus H2 divided by ln R1 by R2. So this is the aquifer thickness. Okay, the thickness here will, so that's why you thought about the Q would increase if your aquifer thickness is increases.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
That's so where you thought about it. Okay. Quantum depression. So I let me, maybe I'm biased in because I have been reading this one forever, so I have to think a little different way. So your question is very, that's valid, but here the only thing that the reason I would say how I don't get confused is this flow rate over here is you are pumping using a pump. Okay, that pump is creating this this cone of depressions. Okay, if you have natural groundwater well, it will always be stable as you're not actively changing the the this the head differences by just creating a well there. So I'm asking here, if you dig a well, that's what I thought, when I write the question. I never thought that this is going to be you are actively pumping. This is naturally how much it will fall into that well. So that's the only way I thought. Okay, but I see where you guys are confused. Um, well, if I ask the questions related to contaminants, how much pollutants, plume, all that, then you'll know this question is related to that. That's the only way I can think. But here, um, the question I ask is what is a natural flow rate? It's not how much you pump. Okay, that's the only way I can think of now. But that's a fair point. I see that why 56% people got it wrong.
I guess I just think that the key word that directed me to thinking this way was pumping well. So I just thought,
I mean, you're not alone. Of course, I feel like 36%. The fact that they got it wrong is obviously that because of that confusion. So, all right. So what
Another thing was that it didn't mention it mentioned a different well. So
Okay.
I did assume that it was only one well.
Okay, I see. Let's do one thing. I think this is a valid point. What I'll do is I will take these questions out of the quiz. Okay, so you'll receive 9 out of whatever your score is. Okay, that way you this is I understand now that this is why you guys confused. So this one particular question will be not counted in the quiz. Okay. All right. So next, I'm just going to go through very quickly where you should look for short question, where you should not look for short, or where you should look for long questions. Every homework number 1 to 5 is all relevant for quiz, not quiz, um, for the for the midterms. But if you think of, we have 10 lectures. Okay, lecture 1 to 10. Okay, so those are all part of the question, and we have 3 long questions. Long questions. Okay, so I'll get to that quickly. Okay, so lecture 1 is basically chemistry concept. You have unit conversion, you have pH, you have balancing redox reactions. These are all short questions, 2-point questions. And again, these are not multiple choice questions. I'll give you a question, I'll say balance it out. Okay, so that's the that kind of questions. So you will calculate, you will not have options to choose from. So your calculator should be there with you. So again, this is short questions. That's just a basic chemistry. There will be 2 questions maximum here. 2 questions, 2 short questions. Each 2 points. Okay, so short questions are 2 points, 2 point each. So usually correct, and you'll have one calculation. Another is sometimes I ask the questions like explain what's the reason. Um, so otherwise, sometimes just calculation. So your steps, you get partial credit for the step and also the correct answer 1 point. So short questions will be check on those.
Did you say 2 questions for each one of the 3 bullet points?
No,
or
no, no, no. Maximum 2 questions. Maximum 2 questions from lecture 1.
Thank you.
Okay, it's maximum. So 4-point overs. Lecture 2, 3 is mass balance. Okay, this is all about mass balance reactions, and that will be have 1 long questions. Okay, this is 1 long question. That long question have already reaction terms there, but the short question will be mostly related to reactions, order, rate, constant, or sometimes mass balance, control volume. Identify what's the control volume, or just writing just the mass balance equations for that. Like you have 1 questions in the quiz, you have multiple flow, you ask in the 1 unknown flow rate. So your mass balance equations, applying mass balance equation to solve for the 1 unknown. Very specific, that's not very complicated one, the one I'm talking about. So these are short questions. Okay, possible short question. I'm not saying that it will all be part of the questions, because you have maximum 10 questions, 10 short questions in the entire midterms. But you have 1 long question. So obviously you should check anything related to mass balance equations. You should check those, at least 1 question will be in the midterms. And energy balance lecture 4 is no long questions. You'll have short questions. You basically calculate energy or power. If power is given, how much total energy, all that. Okay, so very short conversion. So mostly think of conversions. All the equations that's written there so that you can know how to check it. The 5 biology, that doesn't have any questions, okay? Because mostly the short question I can ask is based on reduction, which is already asked in the previous concept question. So there will be nothing there for you to check. Lecture 6, risk, is will have short questions. Um, Again, this is just check those different types of unit. I made mistakes in that particular class, how to calculate different type of risk. So risk type. So you know that formula, so you could be able to estimate that. That could be one question, and there could be some concept question like we ask LD50. LD50. You have also in the quiz, you have one concept questions. Okay, it will be very similar to that. Lecture 7 is actually surface well, if I remember. And it has one long questions, okay? So that BOD is already part of the mass balance. So the difference is just the BOD there, okay? So just remember this has quite a bit equations. For instance, you have distance criticals or deficit criticals, all those values. So those could be short question or those could be part of long question. But mostly once you set up the equations, this is just plugging the value. You are not deriving that. So think of those as also short questions. Okay. And we have example short question given. And again, this is part of the mass balance. Okay, so that's why I wrote this is mass balance. So the mass balance question, you have one question on mass balance. That could be these questions. So that's all integrated there. So I'm not asking another mass balance questions here, just to show that they are all similar. Lecture 8 is groundwater. Groundwater pollution. So that's one long question. You have multiple example on that. So that you know that. It may have short questions, I'm not saying, but we ask a couple of questions related to porosity, related to groundwater hydraulic conductivity, and also we ask questions related to Darcy's law. So you might have some short questions, but you have those in the quiz and slides. But you have one long questions on contaminant plume migrations. Something you have seen before, okay? The lecture 9 is water treatments. Usually it will have short questions. It has settling velocity. It has, let's say, inactivations, coagulation, flocculations. Those are short questions. Those are not long questions. And the last one, which is hardness, it will have one long question. Okay. I would not say this is a short question. The reason is that already that long question has so many short questions that it's already integrated into that. So if you think of what are the 3 long questions, hardness is one question, groundwater, plume migration is one question, and then mass balance is another question. Everything else would be short question. Any questions until then?
How many points are the long questions going to be worth?
So 3 long question, each one is 10 points. So 10 times 3 would be 30, and short question will be each is 2 points times 10, so that will be 20. So total is 50.
Are the short questions going to be like a part of the bigger questions?
No,
No.
that is separate.
Okay.
Like you have, let's see the example. So like you see over here, there are short questions. Now just ask. So if you solve this just equations, you get the 1 point, and then there's another things, explanations or concept, that will be another points. So like this, they're all different. By the way, this is a mistake. There is a mistake here. So velocity of, no, actually it's correct. Velocity, I remember some point I made a mistake. Velocity of water is versus velocity divided by n. So that's correct.
Professor, so you said that we were gonna have 3 long questions, right?
Yes.
The hardness,
Yeah.
the
Hardness, mass balance, and groundwater flow.
okay.
Okay, so like this, no, the difference is, as I said, you have, so this is perfect example of mass balance equation. So this is the mass balance, you put this one and read the question carefully, because I gave you, ask you very specific points. I say, write the equations, you have to write it. And always make your final answer boxed, and that way I don't miss it, because we don't want to, we want to read everything, but if you make it harder, then we might miss one. So make it very clear. Um, I will have questions like this, exactly like you have space, but you don't have to write on this one. If you don't have a printer, you can just write on your own self notebook and post the pictures. But make sure it is legible, it's clear, and have space between sentence. Don't write too congestedly. That will make it harder. And when you upload in Gradescope, make sure that you say which locations are what answers, because that's very important. That's why I gave you 30 minutes just for uploading. Okay, this makes it very difficult for us to grade when you just don't point anything. Again, most importantly, makes the structure very clear. So for instance, this is the mass balance equations with a BOD. Okay, this is what I was talking about. Um, BOD can be integrated into the mass balance equations. And if you see hardness questions, that was not there because in the previous year, in class exams, uh, the hardness, by the time we go to week 5, hardness sometimes we are delayed a little bit. So that's why it goes to the final. That's why I put this one here. If you think of, hardness, or look at this one, this was a long question related to particle settling. Um, this is the hardness questions. And you don't have to write each step like here. You can create a tables and say exactly. And as long as you mention the steps, this is why you're writing 300. Then you should be able to find. But tell the steps. If you don't write anything, just plug the numbers. We don't know how you get there. And that means if you get a wrong answer, you'll get that deducted, because you didn't tell us why, even how you get to that 300. So somewhere you have to mention how you go to these steps. So again, this is hardness questions. You should check those answers. And a lot of times students ask questions related to when we should use calcite. Let me get to that one. So there are a couple of things. CO2. A lot of times, in example question, CO2 was not given. There are ways to calculate that based on the pH, because the CO2 is coming from atmosphere. So if you know the pH of water, you can exactly calculate what's the CO2 level. Check the examples. So if the CO2 level is not given in your questions, don't bother writing it. This just will save you time. But is it correct way? It's not correct way. If you are doing it right, really um, for your let's say consulting company, you have to account for that one. But for this exam, if I didn't give you CO2 concentrations, don't try to calculate. If you do calculate, I'll not take points, of course, just so that you know that is not required. Another time is calculate the amount of lime required. Just take this one, what I asked. Is this I asked CaO or CaOH? Because both are same. The difference, you take the solid and put in a because you can't pour what just the solid. Usually what they do is for proper mixing, they already dissolve in water and make it like a slurry. So that slurry is CaOH2. So that's basically CaO plus H2O. When you mix them together, it becomes CaOH. So this is hydrated slime, hydrated lime. This is solid lime, okay? So calculate the amount kg of lime. If I say hydrated lime, that means I'm asking CaOH. If I just say lime, that's the CaO. But if whatever you do, just say that your assumption. That way I know that this is what you assume, and that's how you write the answers. If you, as long as you write this, as I said, we evaluate for correct answers, that are not correct answers, right approach. As long as your assumptions are correct, or you had the legitimate assumptions, and our question was confusing, so that means you can assume anything, and then you follow the steps, then you get most of the point. Okay, so write everything. So don't leave out anything. Any steps you thought would be critical for you to make a choice. This was obviously this is for finals, because this was a final questions related to wastewater treatments, which you will have questions number in the following. The question homework number 6 will be part of wastewater treatment. So that's all I had, and just to discuss that now. Usually the questions are just to give you a perspective. These were not open book exams, what I write here. They are in-class exams. Student has finite amount of time to do it. So what you have is difference is open book. That means it's a risk as well as its benefit. Why it is a risk? Risk that you don't prepare for it because you have homework solution right in front of you. Questions are relatively similar to homework, so that means you can open the homework and go step by step, which is fine. I don't but just know that that will take longer time. That's why I have a specific 3 hours. So if you have not prepared earlier, it will always take longer time. So make sure that you prepare your homework, go through each of them, so that you know all the steps, and maybe work on your homework on Excel. That way you know its steps once you plug the one value. That's how I do it. So for instance, I'm going to show you my Excel solutions, which I don't share because of this reason, because it's open book exam. Let's see. But anyway, let me stop sharing this, and then I'll open the homework solutions. Let's see. Okay, so stops there. Then I'm going to share again my Excel file. Okay, so this is the hardness questions. I do this one. Okay, so I plug the value. If I plug any value here, I write the concentration given, I write the molecular weight, then I write the equivalence N, then equivalent weight, then calcium carbonate based on that multiplications. Okay, so by doing this one, I can change the unit here and automatically get the answers here. Okay, so the concentration in equivalent or calcium carbonate, and then I was able to plot it directly because I just plug the value, how much calcium here, calcium, magnesium, and anions, then I just plot this one. So this thing will automatically change. So what I'm saying is this is one way to actually do well when you prepare. You can make your homework questions as Excel file or whichever program you use. That way you just plug the value and your calculation will be automatically corrected. So this is just one way. Another thing I want to show you is the my homework questions. So this is homework 3 or something. I have to check. So I have all the value here. So for instance, lifetime expectancy question, all that stuff. So if I plug one thing change, and everything will change automatically. So it saves a lot of time when you do repeated questions. Okay. So that's something I know that it saved me a lot of times instead of using calculator all along the same thing. So this is one thing I would suggest for open book. If you have time, when you go through the exams, start writing those, creating Excel sheet for at least for the long questions, for harness questions, or For instance, gravity settling, you put all the value, density and everything else, then you just change one value, your answer is there. So it will save way a lot of times when you do the midterms. And this will also useful for your finals. Okay. Because mass balance is part of final. No matter what, mass balance keep coming. Okay, for a different context. Okay, I think that's all I had. So we are 105 now. I didn't think of anything else because I thought, if you have any question, I'll answer those now. Otherwise, I would just say that we.
I have a question about are you saying that we can use the Excel sheet for the exam as well, right?
No, I mean, you can use the Excel instead of using calculator.
Okay, so if we do use it, then would you like want a picture of like our Excel?
No,
or
no. So that's the different thing. You can't paste your Excel because I don't know what step you use there, right? Because the
Okay.
calculation is missing. So never paste your Excel cell in your Word documents or anything. The reason is the steps, I don't see the calculations there. That's just the replacement of your calculator.
Okay.
Okay. Of course, you can paste the figure. That's fine because there I don't need to see the methods.
I see.
But
Okay, so
yeah.
more like confirming our handwritten calculations and then
Yes.
using the figure that we come up with, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what I mean to say that Excel you can calculate different value. Let's say particle density. If you assign every different constant somewhere else. So in exam you just plug the value and your answer will be automatically calculated. That way you don't have to save that time using your calculator.
I see. Oh, okay. I see. Thank you.
Because the actual numerical value will be different. So that will save you a lot of time.
So when we do that, would you just want us to like show one calculation for like one of the?
One of the cell in the
Yeah.
row in the column, then you are good to go.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Because I need to know the reason is if your right answer is there is fine most of the time. But if you got it wrong for accidentally, like I do most of the time, that's why I don't take point off for the wrong correct approach but wrong answers, because even you plug the wrong value somewhere by accidentally, but if you write it somewhere else, particle density is this, but the moment you put it, you miss that 1 0. I can see that you plug. So write all the every steps. So write the equations, write all the values there, and you may leave the answer nothing. In the sense you, let me show you the what I talk about. Yes, sir. Let's go to the solution. One of the solutions. For instance, here, okay. What I mean is you should write entire step here, okay. And then if you leave this one nothing and just write just the blank and milligram per liter, I don't take any point out because I know that every step, all the numbers are correct. So if you don't write this step and just write the final answer here, if you got that wrong, you got it wrong completely. I'll not give you any points up because I don't know how you even get there. Okay. So always write all the steps just in case you miss any numerical mistakes. Okay. For instance, here every steps are written. If you don't write the final answer, still you get full points as long as everything else before it and you set it up entirely. Okay. Like here, your right answer is 0.002 normal, but if you got it like let's say wrong answers, but everything else before that is correct, you still get full point. Okay. Same thing here. You got to set up the equations, and then when you write the answers, you have to write every terms. Okay, that 200 milligram per liter, 0.2, 500. Just don't write the equation and just write the final answers. You got to write every terms and write units. Okay, it's just the final answer. If you got it wrong, even you have everything before right, you have got the full points. Okay, so I think that's all I have today. I would say that just prepare for your. Let me see if any questions you have that I didn't answer. If I start the midterms on Thursday 10 a.m., will give me full time, just cut off my time at 12. No, you can't start. The cutoff time is based on the 12. So you got to start before that. Account for that one. Because it still says the 24-hour window. So that means, if it's 3.5 hours, you should start 8:30 in the morning. So I'll release at noon. Okay, so you got to work in the morning, or and again, as I said, if you have all the Excel file, everything you created, it should not take more than 2 hours. Okay, these questions are very similar to homework. It's not different from homework. Some question might have a little bit tricky, like the what given, what is not given is different from the homework, but the concept are very similar. Question, can you repeat the long question topics? I have it right. Written down lecture 2 3. So a long question is, we have 3 long questions. There are not 4 long questions. It just, I say that a concept will be part of long questions. There are one for mass balance. It may not have BOD, so that's why that goes to the surface part. And then you have one question on hardness, which is like homework 5, and one question on mass balance, one groundwater, and one hardness questions. Okay. So in groundwater, you don't have to derive anything. You have the equations, you plug the value, get the answers. Okay. But in mass balance, you got to write the steps. Okay. If I ask what is the mass balance equation, you got to write that out. Okay. And then everything is short questions. There is no questions on short question on biology lectures. Any other question? Okay, so start early. As I said, don't wait late long enough. And the questions should not take more than, if you, as I said, if you set it up everything, that should be less than 2 hours. But if you didn't set up, still it should be 3 hours is more than enough. And it was in class exam, people did it in less than 3 hours. So that means there is no reason for you to not do it, particularly when it's open book. Okay, if you are prepared. And write all the steps. Do not leave anything up to assumption for me. If you, as I said, if you have the wrong final answer, but correct right step, you get the full point. And that's only if you write all the steps. That way I know that you followed everything correctly. It just somehow you missed when you're using calculator, something you miss, which is what happened to me. So I don't judge you for the same thing. All right, so I think that's all. There will be no lecture on Wednesday. That will be pre-recorded, and you can watch that when you are doing the homework number 6. They'll have a lot of examples on those. Okay, so which will be released on Thursday.
Professor, just to be sure, you said that we only have to actually derive on the mass balance equations, and then on the others we can use the equations we already had.
Yeah. I mean, if I ask you to derive, I'm not saying that you got to derive. Okay. So you will see the equation. If the question says that now set of the mass balance equation, then you have to write it. All right, so I'll wait for 5 more minutes. You can leave if you don't have any questions. Just assume. Okay, I'm going to stop recording anyway.